Hello, welcome to Under the Surface. I'm Annalee Maley, and today we have Sam Froling joining us, all the way from Illawarra. When did you get in today?
Just landed at 4.
Nice. Yeah. And you just played, right? A couple of days
Monday
ago?
night, Thursday, and then on Saturday again.
So lots of travel.
Yeah, heaps.
Do you, on your off days, when you get them, right, what do you do to relax at the moment? Because I know you guys are traveling so much with your schedule and everything. If you get half a day to yourself, doesn't even have to be a full day, what do you do?
I'm pretty big into the PS5 right now.
Nice.
The new COD just came out, so I've been playing that a fair bit recently.
By yourself, or do you have housemates, teammates that you kind of log in with?
Me and Dan Greeter are pretty much on it all the time. And then my brother gets on a little bit, and my friend Max Norton back home.
Nice. What is it about the PS4 kind of, virtual world kind of thing? Is it just because you can tune out and only think about what you're doing, like right in that point in time, like just playing a game, I guess?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it takes your mind off basketball a little bit. And you're just lounging around instead of watching TV and doing nothing. At least feels like you're doing something.
Yeah.
So you don't feel super lazy.
That's fair. And it gets kind of competitive too.
Yeah. Sometimes I play before bed and it's not a good idea because I get so angry and I can't sleep for the next hour.
Yeah. Me and my housemates do the card games, but it has the same effect. I mean, we're all basketball players, so we have the same, there's a scoreboard and you don't want to be that person that loses. So I can imagine it would be kind of a little bit of the same. So do you have one or two housemates, and are they both teammates that you play with?
Yeah, so I'm just with Dan Greeter this year, but for the last 2 years, Emmett was living with us as well. So Emmett wasn't as big into it, but me and Greeter definitely are. We're big time into it.
Nice. Do you enjoy living with your teammates, opposed to would you rather have kind of your own space, or you think it's helpful to have someone else that's kind of going through the same basketball experience in the same space as you?
I definitely enjoy living with Greeter. I lived with him at the Institute when we were younger, and then coming back to the Hawks, the first thing I messaged him, I was like, so where's the place? What are we getting? And then since I've been there, we've been together, and he's a really good mate of mine. And it's really cool to live with a teammate and kind of go through the journey together. Although ours has been a little different because he's had a few pretty significant injuries, and it's been tough to watch him deal with some of that. And I think I feel like living together has probably helped him a little bit because he's had someone that he could kind of lean on there all the time with us. And vice versa, if I have a bad game or whatever, he's the number one hype guy. We say you can't go shopping with Greeter because you could put the worst outfit on and he'll say, oh, that looks fire, bro, that looks fire. Then you wear it out and everyone will be like, what are you wearing? So you have a bad game and he's like, nah, you were great, you were awesome, you did this well. So he's a really good guy to have around.
Everyone needs a Greeter in their life.
Yeah, I think that's a great saying. I might start telling everyone that they need a Greeter in their life.
Yeah, everyone absolutely does. So you've just come off a pretty awesome game, right? Talk me through what felt different when you were out there this time. Was it a mindset thing? Were you just this barbecue chicken? I'm balling. What was the vibe?
I mean, in shoot around that morning, some days your shot just feels good and felt pretty good. I got fouled, went to the free throw line. The first two went through, and I was like, well, might be on here. And then, I hit my first three, then I hit another one, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Started hitting fadeaways, doing a little bit of everything, and I think it was just one of those days, but it was a little bit of a mindset thing too, and it's always good to see your first couple shots go through and just boost that confidence. So for the rest of the game, you're just like, yep, whatever you take is going down. Yeah.
Would you call yourself a confidence player, or not really?
Yeah, I think so. I think probably when I was younger, I wasn't as much because, I was always bigger and I guess could rely on that. But since I've got to this level, there's definitely been times where, you're down on confidence and you play a little bit worse and it's like, oh. Whereas when I've felt really good, like the other night coming into a game and I have the best game of my career. And as a young guy, I'm still working that out and learning the ropes a little bit there and believing in myself. And, now that I've proven that I can do it, hopefully it keeps going and that confidence stays with me.
I think so. I think that that confidence piece, speaking from myself, when you start to get rolling, it's just easier to keep going. But to tick over that first bit is just sometimes that can be pushing crap uphill. But I want to kind of take it back to your upbringing and your family life? Because everyone knows, like, you come from a massive basketball family. Like, you know, for people that don't know, it's not just Sam and Harry. His sisters, Alicia and Keely, also play as well, and both your parents, right? So as a kid, a young kid, what were you like? Like, who was Sam as a kid? Explain yourself, or how would others explain you?
I mean, I think I was probably the most quiet out of us four as a young kid, mainly because Harry wouldn't shut up. And the girls were older, so they had a bit more power. Mm-hmm. But as a young fella, you know, I was a lot more reserved, but I was more of a AFL player in Townsville than I was a basketballer. There was a point before I went to the institute where my sisters started making Australian teams and taking off, and Harry just made his first one, and his basketball was starting to take off. And you know, I was younger, so I hadn't had that opportunity, but footy was starting to take off for me, and I was doing pretty well in that, and not as well in basketball. So I was starting to lean that way, and then I went to my first Oz camp, ended up being lucky enough to make that team, and then I went to an Australian development camp, and I remember talking to Adam Caporn after that, and he was like, yeah, we want you to be a basketball player, and brought me down to the institute. And you know, it's after those few camps, I think I just fell in love with the game all over again, and yeah, now I'm here where I am now.
Yeah, was there ever any point when you were making that kind of choice, I guess, between footy and basketball, or maybe it might have been when you were playing footy and basketball at the same time? Did you ever feel any sort of pressure coming from, like, I'm in a basketball dynasty, should I be choosing this instead of that? Or did you kind of just let your path kind of come to you?
There was no pressure. Like, Dad always said he didn't care what we did as long as we were playing a sport as young kids. And then when I was leaning more towards footy, he was all for it, and Mum was all super supportive of it. And then when I just ended up deciding basketball, it was, you know, the same thing. It's, we don't care what you do, just do it hard and do it well, and we'll be happy. And so, yeah, that full support from them. They didn't care. Like, if I played basketball, they probably, I don't know if they'd like me playing golf, but if I played basketball, footy, soccer, any of that kind of stuff, it didn't matter. They just wanted me to be happy and healthy and out there having fun.
Speaking of your dad, he has some pretty infamous stories of you and the kids when you were younger. I just had dinner at your place over the weekend with Alicia and your other family. We played an away game in Townsville, and they cooked up a feast for us, the famous chicken lasagna. That was what we got, which was great. But your dad told us some pretty great stories on how he instilled discipline and just real resilience in you guys. Can you think of any time in particular where that was exercised?
Yeah, so Dad's favourite one is Harry got a call home from school. Harry probably tells it better than I do, but anyway, Harry comes home that day, and we had heaps of huge palm trees in our house, but there was one that just never grew. And it was because it was planted in clay and just wouldn't grow. And Dad goes, yep, Harry, you're digging that hole. You're digging that tree out and digging them one by one cube metre hole. And Harry was out there for, I reckon, 12 hours in Townsville in 35-degree weather. Mum came out with some water. Nah, don't give him any water, Jenny. He's got to learn. And then, I mean, just watching that scared all of us pretty straight. Then Dad ended up buying a big block of land in Townsville, and he constantly moves rocks up there, builds rock walls. He can't stop himself. And I remember I got a call home from school one time. I was like, oh, there's no clay in the backyard. I think we're all good. I get home, Sam, we're going up the hill. So I have to go up with him for 5 or 6 hours. You know, we're wheeling wheelbarrows of rocks just... And I'd like to say I learned my lesson, never got to call home again, but I might have got a few more.
There's always more rocks to be carried up that hill.
Yeah, and he's always looking for a reason to make someone do it.
Yeah. He did drop a lot of wisdom on us over the weekend of how he parented you guys, and those stories were definitely included. They make for good dinner time stories. It's pretty entertaining.
It's funny now. It was not funny back then.
Wasn't funny at the time, I'm sure. So the dynamic between your siblings all playing basketball, right? And I'm sure this is a question you get so often. Do you guys find that your relationship is built off basketball, or it's just something that you do? Like, it's not something that you define how you connect, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's. I mean, we're siblings. We grew up together. Ultimately, It's not through basketball at all, but we definitely use that as a way to kind of connect. When we were younger, we got in a fight. Let's go play one-on-one.
Yeah.
We sorted it out kind of that way. Mm-hmm. And now we use it because we're all over the place all the time. We use it as a way to, I might be in Melbourne and Alicia might come and watch my game, or the girls, like you guys played in Sydney the other night, I come up and watch the game. And in that way, it's a good catalyst for us to just, meet up with each other randomly and see each other. And all our schedules are so all over the shop and crazy. It's hard to always tee something up. So it's nice when you get to play in the same place and catch up. And that's where I think basketball kind of connects us.
Yeah, I think that the family values of you guys really shines through in those situations. I mean, I saw Sam came up and watched Keely and Alicia play against each other, and just having you in the crowd, they were so excited. And I think that it really shows like that type of support. Not a lot of NBL players come to WNBL games. I mean, and I know that your family and all that stuff, but that kind of shows like a level of respect for not just, the game of basketball, but for women's basketball. And I think that they've always talked about how much respect you've showed in that area. Do you feel, and this is a big question, but there is enough support by NBL players towards the WNBL? And what do you think, as someone who actually does watch the games, that NBL players could do better to support the women's game?
I mean, I would love to see more people show up, is number one. I really like, as much as we're rivals with Sydney, I like the Kings guys. I saw them all sitting courtside at that game. I think that's really cool. And then I think, I don't know what it's like here in Melbourne, whether the guys come out and watch from either of those teams, but I think any opportunity that NBL guys should get to promote the women's game and to go and watch and support it, they should take. Because, watching that game on the weekend, I had a lot of fun, and it was honestly more entertaining than some of the men's games that I've seen. And I will say this: Kelsey Griffin is my favourite player to watch out of anyone ever. I met her when she was in Canberra, and her wife Erin. I was texting Erin during that game, I was hyping Kelsey up so much. I was like, Kelsey is my favourite player I've ever seen play. This is so cool. And I guess I think just the guys should come out and support that as much as they can, because it's such a great product, and I personally love watching it.
That's awesome. So the journey of your basketball kind of meshed from different areas, and we've kind of touched on a few different things. I want to ask you about your college time, because when we look at the player you are now and the things that you've been doing, it's kind of skipped over sometimes that you went to college. You were there for how long?
10 months.
Not a year. Let's be specific.
Yeah, I left a little early.
Yeah. So, I want to start with your decision to go to college. Why and how did you go down that path? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, my siblings had all done it, and it was kind of what everyone was doing. Everyone at the institute at that time when I was there were looking at it, and I'd had a fair bit of interest from some pretty decent schools. And so I went and did my visits and all that, and ended up deciding on Creighton. I felt, for me personally, they were going to fit. The way I played, kind of the culture there was really good. I got along with the players and the coaches really well. And then once I got there, it's funny, people always say oh, you must have hated it, it must have sucked. For me, when I was there, I was hating it and sucked, but looking back on it, it was such an important learning experience for me, because I went from you're a kid at the tube, everything's kind of given to you, and then you go to this environment. It's the next step between kind of that and pros. And I was there, and I'm a little bit older now. I can't eat whatever I want, and they wanted me to put on weight, and I put on weight, and I probably put too much on, and I got too heavy, then my basketball started to get affected. You know, I was probably enjoying the college life a little bit too much, going out a few too many times, and that started to affect my schooling and my basketball. And so it's whenever people ask me, oh, like, was it the coach's fault? Was it this? I look back on it now and say, that was probably 99% my fault. I didn't handle it correctly. But now I've gone through that and learnt that it taught me what not to do. And so now I remember when I got back home, I was like, damn, I can't do what I've been doing. Mm-hmm. And I got in crazy good shape, and I've maintained that throughout my whole NBL career. And I mean, from that, like, it's your diet, training regimen, you know, being disciplined, not going out and partying all the time. And since I've done that, because college taught me those things, and I mean, it kind of turned my whole basketball career around.
Yeah, I like the way that you describe it as like kind of a halfway house stepping stone thing between being a junior and the pros. And, you know, you're kind of spot on when you say like all those things that you experience a little bit in a sheltered environment, because for us as Australians, we can always come home. But that decision to come home, was that hard for you to come to that decision, and what kind of really pushed you there in the end?
Yeah, it was really hard. And because I had such a good relationship with the coaches there wasn't any, like, they didn't screw me over. They didn't do anything like that. It was, ultimately I didn't enjoy the basketball, and I wasn't feeling too good about myself. And so at the end of that, I remember I was on the phone to one of my best mates, and I was like, man, I'm not enjoying this. Like, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. When I get to basketball, I can't wait for training to be over. Like, I can't. And I was like, look, man, I got to get out of here. I got to stop this. I got to change something. And so having that conversation with the coach was really hard, because I felt like I was letting them down. But ultimately, for my sake and where I wanted to get to, mentally, I wasn't whether I wasn't ready for that or I handled it wrong. I needed a change of scenery, and that's ultimately what led to my decision to come back home. And I was lucky enough to come straight back into a pretty good program in Dandenong with Darren Perry, and then roll into the under-19s Worlds, which was also a bit of a catalyst for it, because I had that coming up and I wanted to do really well there. And I felt like I wasn't in good enough shape at college, so I wanted to get home and get in good shape for that. And then I ended up having a DP really help me, and ended up having a really good NBL 1 season, and then ended up signing with the Hawks.
So when you talk about that time where you weren't enjoying basketball and it's hard to get out of bed every morning and it's just, you know that something's not right, how did you transition then into a space of being motivated to be better? Because I know for a lot of people, and especially for myself, like sometimes when I'm in those kind of down moments where I'm not motivated and it is hard to get out of bed in the morning, and basketball just isn't bringing that kind of passion and joy. What was the catalyst then to be like, oh yeah, I'm motivated? Like, was it, because usually there's a lot more layers to it than that.
I think the big thing for me was it's not just a switch you can flick. It was, I got to Dandenong and, you know, I had to get up, and we lived right near where the Hawthorn Hawks train, and it'd be getting up in the morning and forcing myself to get out there and actually do some exercise and get going. And there was mornings where I wake up and didn't want to do it, but it was the discipline side of, you know, I have to do this if I want to get to where I want to get to. And, you know, once I kind of got that into the routine, and it became easier and easier, and then I got in better shape and I started enjoying it. And then, you know, the trainings, it became more enjoyable again. And then as I started to get better, I was having more and more fun. Then the games became really good. And it was just kind of that, the first block is always the hardest, when you actually got to force yourself to get out and do it. Because once you've done it, once I got out of bed and I was exercising, it's like I'd go and just wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
But it was that part of, you know, not just saying like, oh, we'll give today a rest. It was, even when you're feeling your worst, it was like getting myself up and doing it and making myself feel better afterwards because I've done that. And then building that kind of discipline and being motivated. And that's where I kind of built my motivation, was knowing that, even when I'm at my worst, not feeling great, is I can still do this.
Yeah. So I think we can see that in the way that you play basketball. Like watching you on the basketball court, you can see that kind of like drive, and it's something that a lot of people have noticed in you over the last couple of years, especially in your professional career. Being with the Hawks and how you've progressed over, just for you it probably feels like a long period of time, but it seems like a short period of time, and your growth as an athlete, as like in your skills and all of that stuff, that takes constant work. And a lot of the time we don't give enough credit to the athletes that put in so much work behind the scenes. And we were just talking about you as an offensive threat and growing your offensive game and that type of thing. How much work did that take? And was it all physical skills work to get you to that point where you have a career high game? Or is there a lot mental side of that you need to give credit to as well?
Yeah, there is a lot of the physical stuff, but it's also a mental side, and a lot of it is the confidence stuff. But so much of it's just tiny little details for me. Like my shot was falling last game, and it felt really good. But that's because I've been working on my shot for the last 2 and a bit years, and it's starting to get to a point now where I'm confident to shoot it in games. And it's kind of been the same for me with my mental space and confidence. Coming up after that first year I had here with LaMelo Ball and Flinney as the coach, we win 5 games. You don't feel super good about yourself when you're not playing on a winning team. And then I came in, and that first phone call from Gorge, he's like, Sam, we're
keep going, this is perfect.
Sam, we want you to be really fit, and we're going to be a winning team. We're going to turn the Hawks around. And I was just like, yep, I'm in. And,
sold, yeah. And especially with that accent, how could you say no?
I feel like I do a pretty good Gorge.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But and then him coming in and being the coach, the way he could motivate and give you kind of energy and make you feel good about yourself was so good for me at that point in my career. And kind of boosted me, and then now I've carried it over into the next year and then this year as well, obviously. And this year's had its challenges too. But we're 2-10 right now, and it's hard when you're when you've got a losing record to kind of bring that energy out. And before the last game, I was kind of thinking about it a little bit, and I was like, I just want to go out there, play my best, and I felt good at shoot around that morning. Kind of didn't think about it too much, just came out, remembered the biggest thing that Gorge wanted was effort and energy. It doesn't matter if your shots aren't falling, and I kind of applied myself to that, and it seemed to, help me with my offensive game as well.
Yeah, so I personally struggle, and I know a lot of other athletes do, after games, turning our brains off, not wanting to go home and just rewatch every clip of the game. And sometimes I catch myself doing that too. Do you find it hard to wind down after games as well? And what do you do to kind of, turn your brain off after you've played either a really good game or a really bad game?
Yeah. I also have a few scoops of pre-workout before the game, which definitely doesn't help me get to sleep after. Yeah. No, I really struggle to sleep after games. Normally, if we play at a 7:30 or an 8 o'clock game, I won't be asleep till 2 or 3 a.m. And I try to find stuff to just distract myself, whether that's watch on Netflix or play a game if I'm at home. That's the kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of it is just. It's really hard to turn your brain off, and I honestly haven't worked out how to do it yet.
Right? I've asked a couple of people this question over the last couple of weeks because, I've been finding I get home and I'm like, surely every basketball player doesn't find it this hard to go to sleep after games, but so far everyone that I've asked has been like, yeah, you cannot sleep after a nighttime game. It just doesn't happen. Maybe we can figure it out and drop some wisdom next time we get you on.
Maybe don't have 3 scoops of pre-workout.
Yeah, that'll probably do it.
Yeah.
I do the coffee, the pre-workout, the pins and needles, it's just not there yet. But anyway, moving on, the future for you, goal setting, that type of thing. Are you a big visualization person in terms of your future? Do you set goals, or are you more day to day? Is that your process? Talk me through that.
I'm definitely more day to day. I mean, I have goals. I want to be an Olympian and I want to make the NBA. And that's ultimately the two big ones. And for me, the process of the day to day is what's going to get me there. So that's what I try and focus on. And that's, you know, whether that's rocking up early and making sure I do my form shooting for every training, or, you know, I've had some Achilles pain, that's making sure I do my prehab before every training. I think I try to focus on all that stuff so that I'm putting myself in the best position, and then taking care of the actual training and the working hard and getting fit and lifting in the weight room and all that stuff. And then putting myself in the best position possible so that at the end of this thing, whether I've done it or not, I can say, look, I've given it my best shot and I'm happy with what I did.
Yeah. So outside of basketball, right, do you have like any side goals that, you know, in your personal life, or maybe it's something to do with, I don't know, family, investments, hobbies, anything like that? Do you have any personal goals that you put outside of the scope of basketball? Yeah.
The first couple of years, I definitely just focused on basketball, but now kind of as I'm getting a bit older, I've started to focus a bit more on other stuff. And I think the big one for me that's coming up is probably going to be buying a house or something like that. And I've started that process, and it's
a lot harder.
Yeah, it's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. So that towards the end of this year, I think will definitely be a big thing that I'm looking forward to. And then, I mean, I think I'll want to, in the next couple of years, probably start to look into studying something of some kind, just have something under my belt. So at the end of it, I can slide into something nice, or just have it there and just brag to people that I've got a degree.
Yeah, that you've done it.
I've already done 10 months of college, so we're a quarter of the way there. Yeah.
You get some credits for that somewhere. Yeah. Somewhere in the collegiate system, there's a picture of you registered for a class. So I think that counts for at least something. Absolutely. So my last couple questions, I wanted to start with, like, tell us something that people don't know about you, or that they wouldn't expect. If there is anything, are you that much of an open book that there's nothing that people wouldn't know? But do you have any kind of parts that people wouldn't know about you?
I don't know. That's a good question.
You don't have to answer that one.
I feel like there's no big dirty secrets. I mean,
I was thinking more like a party trick, like you are great at cards.
No, you know what? I'm honestly, apart from basketball and maybe AFL, I'm quite uncoordinated and not good with much other stuff. I'm a little bit clumsy, but yeah.
You ever done those like paint and sip classes where they get you to like paint stuff? And
I haven't, and I can't draw or paint.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if I did, it would look horrendous.
Give yourself some credit. I'm sure you could get something going there. And then I'd already asked you what you've done in your spare time with like the gaming and stuff. I think, you know, that is, again, a lot of basketball players also find their way in the virtual reality space as a way to turn off. But how do you think that people view you? Like, if you're sitting in a basketball stadium and there are all these fans and kids trying to get your autograph, what do you think people want to see, and what do you want them to see?
I mean, I just want people to think that, you know, I'm a good person, and I try to be kind. I remember I felt so bad after one game. We just lost, and this one lady that's a huge Hawks fan was in the crowd and was like, grabbed me and was like, oh, like, don't look so upset, you know, it's okay. And I kind of snapped at her, and I was thinking about it all night. And I made sure to go out of my way the next game to go and say something to her and just apologise. And I think, you know, for me is like, I probably wasn't. I was one of the big kids at school. I think I was a bit of a bully sometimes. And, you know, growing up, I kind of look back on that, and some of the memories that I have of it is I wish I didn't do that. And so, like, I try now my hardest to treat everyone really well and make them feel good about themselves, because, you know, I remember looking at, now I look back on it, the effect that kind of some of the stuff that I did had on some people.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel like really bad for them, and I wish I could go and talk to them and tell them that, like, I'm sorry and I didn't mean to be such an asshole. It was just kind of, I was an insecure kid that just kind of took it out on other people. So now that's kind of how I want to be seen now, is like, I don't care who you are, I'm going to be nice to you and treat you well. And I think that's just how we as people should kind of treat life, because if we all treat everyone well, then everyone feels pretty good about themselves, and the world's a bit of a better place.
I 100% agree with that. And I was just thinking, as you were talking just then, when you were talking about hindsight and looking back at your career, and when I say that, I'm not just talking about your professional career. I'm thinking like all the way back to when you maybe started playing sport in general. Is there anything that you would have changed at all, or you sit here now and you're like, no, this is where I was supposed to be, and there's nothing other than what you just mentioned about the way you treat people and that type of general stuff? But is there any big moment that you're like, wow, that was a sliding door, maybe I should have taken that? Or you sit here now and you're like, nah, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be?
I'm pretty happy with where I am, and I like to look back on everything and think about why it happened. And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at that. And there has been moments where I've been like, oh, like I could have done something different there, but ultimately I didn't. And if I was wishing that I did, then I think that's just wasting my own time, because wishing that I did it isn't going to change where I am now. And I'm pretty happy with where I am now and the attitude I have towards the game, and what the work that I've put in. I'm at the end of this thing, in however long I play for, I know that I'm going to sit there and be happy with what I did throughout my whole career, and that got me to where I am, no matter how high of a level I play, no matter whether I have 5 more years, 10 more years, 15 more years in this thing. At the end of it, I'm confident that I'll be able to sit there and say, I did everything I could, and I'm happy with where I'm at.
That is awesome. And that is a really great note for us to wrap up on. I just wanted to say thank you for being here. I always find it really interesting talking to basketball players a lot of the time that we see on screen a lot, and kind of figuring out who they are. And a lot of your basketball journey is tied in with your life journey and your life choices. And I just think that this will be a really good episode for people to listen to and be like, who is Sam? Tell us about your childhood. What do you do in your spare time? It'll be really good. And I especially liked the parts where you talked about your family and your time at college, because I do think there's a lot of people now that there was such a wave of kids going to college that have the fear of coming back, or have that fear of, oh, am I not in the right place here? So I do think that'll be really beneficial. So on that note, thank you for your time. This is Under the Surface with Annalie Maley and Sam Froling. Be sure to tune in next week.
Thanks for having me.